Hello and welcome to Feldspar Television Productions. Look at books and publications about nuclear warfare and a little bit of survival stuff. I'm going to go through this list pretty quick. Most of this is official government publications. For example, this one is The Effect of Nuclear Weapons. It's a reprint from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it's loaded with charts, the radiant exposure distant relationship, and things like that. It has pictures of the buildings that were destroyed out in Nevada during the tests. It has a lot of mathematics. So, if you're ever in that nuclear attack and you get caught out in the open, as long as you have your calculator, you can very quickly determine the size and strength of the shelter you will need. This next book is a kind of a related book by an author named Bolson. It's actually about buried structures, static and dynamic strength. It's really not so much survival as it is information and the mathematics, the algebra behind determining the strength of an underground structure. Again, this is something that any good survivalist should carry with them at all times, just in case they get caught out in the open during nuclear war. This book here I picked up on the sales shelf somewhere. It still has the price tag, $4.98. It's the U.S. Army Survival Manual. It's actually a fairly decent book. You don't have to be in the U.S. Army to survive. But it has stuff, you know, chapters about dehydration, hypothermia. If you've never really experienced the outdoors and you wanted something to refer to, this is a good one to refer to. It has like traps and things like that. I would recommend this. Here's an old book that I've had for a long time. Where did I get this from? But it's The Police, Emergency Handling of Radiation Accident Cases from 1969, printed by the United States Atomic Energy Commission. Now I want to show you something. See the picture of this guy on the cover? Now take a look at this old highway map from Standard Oil. That's the same guy, isn't it? I think it is. So it tells you exactly what to do in the event of like some sort of like nuclear mishap, and how the police are going to help us through this mess. Here we have a handbook for fallout shelter management. This is from December of 1966. Now this one is kind of neat because it's like World War III has just occurred. You're in the shelter. Every shelter has a commander. What will that commander do? Well, it has like shelter occupancy operations, and it actually has flow charts of, you know, who's in charge, who's the next person in charge, and then like at the bottom of the grid here would be all the red shirts, you know. That's Tuesday, you know, we got 98 people in the shelter. Is it safe to go out again? Well, send a red shirt out, and if he makes it back, then it's probably safe. If he doesn't come back, then it's probably not safe. When I went to high school, they had our health movies. You know, everybody had to take the semester of health. And at the time I was in high school, every single health movie revolved around a fallout shelter theme. So they had, one movie was about burns, one movie was about sickness, one movie was like breaking bones, and it was kind of like, somebody in your shelter has broken a bone. Talk to the shelter commander. He will get the appropriate resources for you. You know, and the final movie of that series was Emergency Childbirth, and they actually found some woman who gave birth on film, you know, and they're showing this to all these sophomores in high school. You know, this film was notorious because it actually showed everything, and it was one of the most disgusting movies I've ever seen, you know, but they actually suckered some woman into going into a real bomb shelter, you know, fallout shelter, to have this, you know, have her kid. You know, I don't know what they named the kid. Maybe it was Adam. Get it? Atom. Next one here is a summary of Soviet civil defense research reports. Again, it's a FEMA publication. This is interesting because it still has the old civil defense logo on here. And it's just talking about what the Soviets have done in terms of their civil defense. There's been a lot of discussion in Soviet civil defense that they have this like really great civil defense system, but then the reality of when you look at anything from the old Soviet Union, a lot of the stuff they put together was just crap. Here's another interesting book. It's Shelter Analysis for Nuclear Defense from Initial Nuclear Radiation. Subtitle, The Protection Factor Computation Service. It's a FEMA publication, and it has typical nuclear weapon effects, okay? Typical. Yeah. Hey, what's that over there? Why, that's a mushroom cloud. Must be a nuclear explosion. Well, do you think that's typical? Well, yes, that's a typical nuclear. Yeah. So they have all this stuff here, and they actually have an example of an old form they want you to fill out. So after the nuclear attack, there's going to be a lot of paperwork, but this publication shows you how to fill it out. Here we have Civil Defense from 1988. This is another FEMA publication. This is printed well after everybody pretty much gave up on the concept of workable civil defense. So I don't know what the purpose of this is, other than to, I think it was mostly quotes from committee meetings and things like this. This was probably a self-serving publication for FEMA. This next one up, out of all the books I have for you today, Nuclear War Survival Skills by Crescent H. Kearney. This one is the one I would recommend. If this is the one I remember too, he goes back and he criticizes a lot of the official government publications, saying that if you build the shelter the way they show it in the government publication, you're going to probably kill yourself. But this book is loaded with diagrams and pictures of how to build shelters, how to build filters, what to do about food, what's going to happen when you're in the shelter, homemade radiation detecting devices. So if you ever want to get any one book about how to survive the nuclear war, well, this would be the one that I would recommend. This book just got kind of mixed into the whole thing. It's the patrol operation, the whole police thing, and one thing I'm sure you can count on in the event of a nuclear war, you can bet that the police will be taking care of their families first. Guaranteed. There's going to be very few noble people out there. So if you're out there in the open when the nuclear bomb hits, well, don't look for a cop. Here's an old thing from something called the DuPage County Sheriff's Department. When in trouble, call a friend, call a deputy. Yeah. Nuclear terms, a glossary. This came from something called IRDA, United States Energy Research and Development Administration, down in Oak Ridge. It's just the glossary of all these different things. Like, here's the definition of a nuclear rocket. Normal uranium. Okay, normal uranium is defined as natural uranium. Okay, good. Here we have Soviet Civil Defense. This is a FEMA publication from 1982. And so if you're ever caught in the open during a nuclear war, this one you can read quickly, and that will tell you exactly what will happen to the Soviets, or the Russians, or whatever they are this week. Simplified water testing and supply for fire departments and insurance engineers. When I bought this, this actually was 29 cents. I've included it into the survival booklet because I'm really big on telling people that one of the great survival skills you need if there ever is a huge situation is sanitation. You have to make sure that everybody with you is getting fresh water, and you have to make sure that your waste products, your human waste products, are disposed of properly. If you fail to do either one of those, you're going to invite all sorts of diseases. And that's probably going to be one of the hardest things to organize after an emergency. Here's a FEMA book, In Time of Emergency, a Citizen's Handbook. This is the book that you should carry in your back pocket, so if you get caught in a winter storm, okay, you can pull this out and refer to it. If you get caught in a tornado, you can pull this out and refer to it. A hurricane, you can pull this out and refer to it. They have all sorts of stuff in here, you know, and improvising a basement shelter. Here's a little diagram of this guy putting like all his stuff on top of his workbench, you know. His workbench in the basement and all his storage on top of it is going to protect him from those 200 kilotons of Soviet nuclear weapons. Okay, here's Illinois Department of Public Health, a Citizen's Emergency Handbook. If you know anything about Illinois and the way Illinois is governed, You can just bet that somebody got a great contract to print this book, and this is exactly the sort of thing that I'm not so sure I would want to obey it. You know, maybe the winter storm stuff in here, but I don't know. Interesting little thing. This is the FEMA publication catalog from 1997, and you can contact FEMA and you can get a whole bunch of stuff. And like on this page is the stuff that I got, and I have them all checked off. But FEMA does a lot of stuff, and the U.S. government has a lot of free publications. And I don't know where you order them out of anymore, but it used to be like Colorado Springs or someplace. And so if you want to get some of these books, if they're still in print, if they're still in the stockpiles, you can write to them, contact them, probably email them these days, and it's free of charge. Most of these I got in a big box that they sent me, and there was absolutely no charge, because I, as the American citizen, is somebody worthy of preservation during the nuclear attack. Here's another old one that's kind of like crossed over in the survival thing, classification of jail prisoners. I'm not sure what this is about. They have a lot of stuff on how to fill out the paperwork. I guess, you know, you check off the spot, you know, this guy's a serial killer, this guy needs the cavity search, this person's on crack, this person's on meth, this person is the son-in-law of the mayor, therefore take it easy on him and let him stay in the lounge for the next 3 days. This guy doesn't know anybody, nor does he have any cash for a payoff, so therefore he goes into the worst part of the jail. You know, that sort of thing. Now here's one that I've never really understood. It's for a 3-ring binder. It's the Federal Register of Commercial Nuclear Power Plants, Emergency Preparedness Planning, and Final Rule. I think they gave this one to me by mistake. I think this is supposed to be if you're at the nuclear power plant and your plant starts melting down, well then you whip out this book and it tells you exactly how to stop the China syndrome. Here we have another Soviet look, Soviet Civil Defense Agriculture Preparedness. So in the event of a nuclear war, if you get caught out in the open, you can pull this out and quickly refer to it, and you will learn of the Soviet agriculture preparedness. And look at this, chock full of charts. Oh, here's a good one. Civil unrest. Recommendations for organization and operations during civil disturbance. It's from the Fire Administration and FEMA. It's a report to the Joint Fire Police Task Force. So here's the thing, campers. I'm not a cop or FEMA or anything like that, but since I have a book, I know what their plan is going to be for the civil disturbance settling. Check this out. Specialty vests should provide upper torso protection, freedom for arm movement, neck protection, and pockets for special equipment. Here's a paragraph on chemical agents, risk analysis, specialty vehicles, accepting risk. Yeah, that's a good one. Recovery from a nuclear attack. So after your state has been destroyed, your nation has suffered a catastrophic loss, there's 300 million dead people, there's nobody left in your family, and you were caught out in the open, you can quickly whip this one out of your pocket, and you can refer to the recovery for nuclear attack. And the first thing I'm looking at here is inadequate life support. That's a hopeful sign. Genetic damage, that's another page. Yeah. Guide for the evaluation of alert of notification systems for nuclear power plants. Fine. Use of civil defense radiological instruments for peacetime radiological emergencies. This gizmo here is a Radiac. I picked this up at an Army surplus store. The tube is missing. It's battery operated, but in theory, I could be one of the people that can detect the radiation. Nuclear radiation shielding, civil defense conference, and civil defense. Okay, this one's law and order training for civil defense emergency. So here again we have this picture of this police officer on the cover, and it looks like the same guy. Alright, well, it looks like the federal authorities are going to break up our little party here, so I hope you've learned something, and I hope you stay tuned to this channel for more weirdness.